Hi, my name is Ivan Ginsberg, and my Fed talk will be about how bread is currently thought of as a bad or unhealthy food and one tied to obesity, and how sourdough bread can change that construction and really push back on it. So, we've all heard that bread makes you fat. That's a commonly said thing in today's social media climate surrounding food. Models claim to avoid carbs in order to keep their svelte figure. It's in TV and movies everywhere that eating carbs makes you fat, and thus eating bread makes you fat. This isn't a new thing. Every few 10 to 20 years, new research comes out that gets trickled down into social media and common diets um, that get associated with fat. Sugar was once it, and now it's and fat was once it too, and now it's carbs and bread and really gluten, I guess, too. But yeah, mainstream media chooses a new food group to demonize and associate it with fat and obesity. Um, and really, we see this everywhere in social media. Groups like BuzzFeed put out food replacement or carb replacement recipes like lettuce wraps and cauliflower pizza crusts. And there's articles everywhere about 10 healthy ways to replace bread, or new diets being put out every day that are all centered on low carb ethos, like the keto, Atkins, paleo, Whole30, or Dukan diet. All of these start with cutting down carbs and cutting down bread, treating bread as a luxury item that doesn't contribute to health at all. When really, maybe we shouldn't be thinking or demonizing an entire food group in this way. Uh, Maybe bread does not really deserve the bad rap it's been getting. But if we are looking at Wonder Bread and the classic image of the bread that people are buying on a day-to-day basis in America, maybe it does deserve that bad rep. Wonder Bread is the classic image of the mass-produced American bread, and it is difficult to call it healthy. Um, but other breads that are plastered in health claims like multigrain or whole wheat are similarly packaged and processed and sliced like Wonder Bread and are made in a similar fashion. All these breads are really pumped full of sweeteners like high fructose corn syrup, of which there's an extensive body of work showing that consumption in excess of which leads to a lot of health complications like obesity and heart disease and many others. Plus, these breads are all full of preservatives to increase shelf life. Um, and these really are faux healthy breads that are nutritionally void, just like Wonder Bread. They're breads that are essentially factory constructions taken apart and put back together, pumped full of nutrients and vitamins designed to sell the idea of health, not really being a healthy bread product. We can really see this looking at the ingredient list of Wonder Bread or its compatriots, just to see how true this rings. So here we see the ingredient list for Wonder Bread. The length of it should scare you. How many ingredients you can't pronounce should scare you. Um, this is typically a lot of these ingredients are found in the mass-produced breads like Wonder Bread you might find at the grocery aisle and Schnucks. This is really the bread that a lot of people consume on a day-to-day basis, and they don't even know about what bread once was or has a potential to be. Bread made from 3 or 4 simple ingredients. And a lot of studies have shown that repeated consumption of processed breads with ingredients lists like this can have adverse health effects. The Research Institute of Biomedical and Health Sciences have shown that consumption of 2 or more daily servings of white bread can increase obesity risk by 40%, which is a pretty shocking number. Michael Pollan and other food journalists have written about, like in this book, Inoffensive Food, how to eat healthy and how to eat simply, which really comes down to eating close to the earth and eating unrefined, unprocessed foods, which is really the opposite of what Wonder Bread and what we really think of bread in the American media as. The war on carbs, or painting carbs as the root of all evil in terms of obesity, demonizes breads because it doesn't really consider bread for what it can be, the way Michael Pollan writes about bread, or the way that bread used to be made. The possibility that bread can be healthy, simple, and nutritious. So these are all images of sourdough bread. Sourdough bread that was naturally made with fermented starter and has its characteristic tang and artisan crust. This type of bread has really been shoved to the margins of general consumption in America in favor of quick and easy mass-produced breads. But making it in the sourdough fashion and consuming sourdough is actually very beneficial for human health, contrary to what media might have you believe about any carb or bread product. Um, Sourdough ingredients are just 3 things: flour, water, and a sourdough starter. How simple it is to make should really key you in to the fact that it might be healthier or better for you than a typical processed bread. It's the health impacts really come from the fact that it's a fermented food product. The sourdough starter is a fermented blend of flour and water and other things that we shall see. So what is a sourdough starter? It's flour, water, wild yeast, bacteria, and fermentation. Starter acts as a leavening agent for sourdough bread and is the root of all the health benefits. Fermentation has been a way of preserving food for millennia and preserving and making foods more nutritionally enriching. And recently, consumption of fermented foods has come back into the health world as a way to strengthen your microbiome due to the probiotic effects associated with fermented foods, and generally just as a kind of hippy-dippy food product that is supposedly good for you. But really, those claims are pretty true, as a lot of research has shown. Fermentation is the anaerobic process involving wild yeast, bacteria, in their conversion of sugars to acids or alcohols. And a sourdough starter is essentially fermenting flour and water. Wild yeast is a fungi whose spores are everywhere in the air, pretty much, and given a food source like flour and water left out, they'll form colonies and grow. These feed on sugars in the flour and produce carbon dioxide, which makes the dough rise. Besides yeast, the flour and water mixture attracts bacteria, many of which contribute to the health benefits of the bread. Lactobacilli in particular are commonly found in sourdough starters. And they produce lactic acid, which remains in the bread after the dough is baked. Of course, they die when the dough is baked. Lactic acid is a very valuable compound for human metabolism. Lactobacilli presence in general is usually indicative of human health when they're in high numbers in the gut or other places in the human microbiome. And as sourdough starter has crept back into the mainstream of health food, there's been an increase in scientific studies on the health benefits of sourdough within a variety of lenses. So here's just a list of some of the articles and journals I looked at coming up with this talk. A lot of studies have looked at the effect of sourdough on the human metabolism and whether the effects are positive or negative. And generally, sourdough has been found to reduce negative effects often associated with bread consumption, commonly like elevated blood glucose levels and glycemic index. And many studies have shown that consumption of sourdough bread reduces these usual key indicators of bread consumption to being tied to obesity. A lot of studies have looked at the ability of sourdough to retard starch digestibility, modulate bioaccessibility of active compounds, and improve mineral bioavailability. Studies have shown that making cereal products sourdough can change the grain matrix, the actual structure of the product, leading to improved nutritional value, improved acid production, changing the product pH to a range that favors the action of certain enzymes, changing the bioavailability pattern of minerals and phytochemicals. These studies also show that this is beneficial in products rich in bran to deliver minerals and potentially protective compounds in blood circulation. Other groups have also suggested that sourdough can help with those who need to consume gluten-free products, like those with celiac disease. Sourdough fermentation seems to retain the positive metabolic activities of the microbiota, even with gluten-free crops as the food source for the yeast and bacteria, which means sourdough could really improve the nutritional value of gluten-free products, which is a pretty hot topic in the gluten-free celiac community. Other studies report that sourdough fermentation can be used as a means of salt reduction in baked goods, manage irritable bowel syndrome, expedite synthesis and release of bioactive compounds, especially the metabolism of phenolic compounds, and exploit the potential of non-conventional flours like those from legumes and pseudo-cereals, like almond flour, and a million byproducts like bran and germ, as previously said. In conjunction with other groups' findings, the University of Bari from Italy found that the microbial metabolism during sourdough fermentation may also produce new nutritionally active compounds that you wouldn't find in processed bread, such as peptides and amino acid derivatives that have a lot of various functionalities. Alongside the potential of sourdough to be incorporated in gluten-free diets, this Italian group found that wheat flour digested via yeast proteases and selected sourdough lactobacilli have been demonstrated to be safe for celiac patient consumptions. So really, that was an overwhelming lot of scientific jargon, but I hope you'll agree, or at least agree that you were shown a large body of evidence that the consumption of sourdough bread has tangible positive effects on human health, contrary to what the mainstream media might lead you to believe about bread and carb products. It's better for you than highly processed, high sugar bread, and it contributes much less to the risk of obesity associated with those breads, if only that it is lower in sugar. Really, bread has been the enemy of staying skinny and healthy for too long, and I think it's time that it takes its spot back as a healthy food that's a staple in the base of a well-rounded diet, as it has been for thousands of years. Sourdough is delicious and it's very good for you. The Western diet really is the source of the bread products that have been associated with obesity and poor health, and why carbs have been demonized. The benefits of fermented food, especially sourdough, have been backed up by the claims of the benefits of fermented food have been backed up by lots of research from many scientific groups, and there's more and more evidence being done, and more work being done pointing towards the consumption of fermented simple breads as being part of a healthy and well-rounded diet. Bread should not be thought of as bad, but rather as an ally in our fight to curb the obesity epidemic.